Welcome to the Queer Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Venegoni. Here we have conversations with artists, healers, and activists who enliven the LGBTQ communities and who empower our queer spirits to flourish. Before we start the interview, I'd like to offer you a gift. I work with many queer folks who struggle with self-esteem, self-acceptance, and confidence. And I get it. Growing up queer is no cakewalk. Living in a world filled with homophobia and oppression can take its toll. Having the strength to be true to yourself can be a challenge, but you can change that. So, if you'd like support taking the first few steps, head over to my website and grab your free copy of The Self-Confident Queer. Just go to queerhealingjourneys.com/confident. This guide will walk you through 3 simple steps to help you begin to build your self-worth and confidence today. So head over to queerhealingjourneys.com/confident and download your free guide today. Okay, now on with the show. My guest today is David Nazario. First and foremost, David is a human, spirit, brother, lover, and friend. Secondly, he is a writer, speaker, and educator. David released his first book, Make Love Your Religion: How to Put Love First and Succeed at Doing What You Love, in 2018. His second book, Poems Written in the Bathtub While Coming Out, will be released on National Coming Out Day in October 2021. David shares the story of how he always loved writing and exploring ideas through story and poetry. We talk about how Make Love Your Religion is a guide for healing the self and connecting with the divine to fulfill your purpose and passion. David also shares a poem from his upcoming book of poetry about coming out. Find him at davidnazario.com. Hi, David. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Nick. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. So there's a few pieces of your work that I want to talk with you about today, but before we do that, I wonder if you can just share with us the story of how you first became interested in writing in general.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I've always been interested in writing, like as far as I can remember, and I guess as cliche as that sounds sometimes, I've always been interested in writing. So I kind of, when I describe it, I've always used the words lucky and blessed because I feel like I was lucky and blessed to know kind of what I wanted to do from a young age. So I can remember, as far back as 6 or 7 years old, just being very fascinated with writing and words and letters and cursive writing and wanting to write in cursive and really being interested in poetry and Maya Angelou and remembering one time in second grade where there was a Black male poet that came in and he really impressed me and like wrote in my book a little message for me to keep writing and things like that. So I was kind of lucky in the fact that I realized it early on and I was able to kind of dive in and be celebrated and supported at home and in school. So yeah, I would say that's how I got started.
And was poetry sort of your first foray into writing?
Yes, I feel like it was my first foray into writing poetry and also just being in school. Like I remember in second grade, having to write maybe 2 paragraphs and I wrote like 4 pages, So I just was fascinated by it. And I remember, being applauded for it and liking what that felt like. So I would say, yeah, poetry as well as just kind of academic writing, as academic as it could be in second grade.
Yeah. As a child, did you always have a lot to say, or did you feel like you communicated better in writing?
That's a good question. I feel like I always had a lot to say, but I don't know if I communicated better in writing, but I guess maybe I was expressing things that I wasn't necessarily saying, or I wasn't saying to everybody. I remember like when my grandmother passed away, when I was in elementary school, I wrote a poem about that and, shared it with my immediate family, but it was not like I was, sharing it with the public. So I think I wanted to say the things and I was able to write them down and kind of share it with my immediate circle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it can be easier for a lot of people to say the things they want to communicate in writing than to put sound and vocalize it, because it feels a lot more scary or vulnerable and it feels safer to put it down in writing, I think. Did your experience of writing ever feel like healing or therapeutic for you because of that?
definitely. I don't think at that time, I think I was doing it, I was using writing as a healing practice when I was younger, but I didn't realize it at that time and I wasn't able to name it as such.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took a bit of a while off from writing poetry, and got more back into it, maybe 5, 6 years ago as an adult. And now I can definitely, experience the healing that comes from it, definitely with my poetry and just journaling and, sometimes just starting to journal first thing in the morning. And then, by the time you're on page 2 or 3, you might come to some realization that you didn't have when you started. So it definitely is a healing practice for me now for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have a book that just came out this last year called Make Love Your Religion: How to Put Love First and Succeed at Doing What You Love. Can you share a little bit more about what that book is and what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, it came out in 2018. So it's been out for just about 3 years now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. It originally started out as a rant against religion and what I was seeing going on in my own family, just kind of divisiveness that was there, in terms of the people who were aligned themselves with Christianity and the people who didn't. And I think I was like fresh out of college and I was, learning some things about Christianity and about religion and about patriarchy and all of those things. So I think I just wanted to write something that spoke out against that. And then over time, it morphed into something that became more about memoir and more about spreading a message of love and not necessarily calling out Christianity, because the original title of my book was I'm David, Christianity is Goliath, Why Love is More Important Than Religion, which is a mouthful and and
Uh-huh.
it's controversial, and I still like that title, and I like saying it because I like to hear people's reaction to it. I realized that was not the vibe. It took me about 7 years to write the book, so of course I grew and matured and learned and unlearned some things, and grateful for that time because it allowed the book to develop into something more than what it was when I started. So the title transitioned to what it is now because I didn't want to alienate anyone. I didn't want Christians to see the title and feel like it wasn't a book for them. I wanted just the main message to be about love. And I also, within that time frame of writing the book, I came to this understanding that for me, doing what I love can be a form of religion for me. And I think it could be a form of religion for anybody if we are practicing trying to do what it is that we love for a living, and also just practicing trying to put love first at the forefront of everything that we're doing, that maybe we can just do those two things and not worry about religion and all the doctrine and all the history and all the other things that come with it, that this could maybe be a new form of religion for us. So that's what it is now. That's what it became over the time while I was writing it.
And so in this context of making love your religion, how would you define religion in this way?
I'd say a way of life, or, a daily practice that you could. I really feel like the subtitle of the book really explains what it's about and what the concept is about. So how to put love first in all areas of your life and how to succeed at doing what you love based on your own, definition of what success is.
Yeah. So it sounds like you felt like people were putting their religion or what they thought their religious beliefs were ahead of love and getting in the way of their connection in your family. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I mean, it sounds like it was challenging and painful. And I guess I just wonder, like, what maybe not your family, but what your relationship to Christianity is now after you've gone through this process of writing this book.
Yeah, I feel like I don't really have a relationship to it. I just, I feel like it's over there and I'm over here. I see the value in community, and I know that religion and Christianity and other religious, that they create community and they allow space for community to happen. So, there are, I think there's good and bad in everything. And even moving past, trying to move past a good, bad binary. For me, there's more value in having a spiritual practice and not aligning with anything that can cause division and can cause war and can promote patriarchy and can promote white supremacy. So, if I'm being honest, those are all of the things that Christianity represents for me, and I think just represents as a whole. So I don't, align myself with it at all.
Yeah, yeah.
But with any, I think there are valuable aspects of it, like with any major religion.
Yeah. So you have really turned love into your religion and your spiritual practice.
Yes. And I always say I'm not an expert at it, And I think it's not, it's not something that you just do and then it's just done forever. It's like an everyday practice, an everyday choice with every decision. Am I going to choose love or fear? Am I going to, act in a loving way to myself, or am I going to act in a not so loving way? Am I going to speak negatively to myself or positively? Am I going to have an attitude with the person talking to, or am I, you know what I mean? So I think it's daily practice. Yeah. And some days I get it a little more right than other days, but every day I try to.
Yeah. Well, I think that love should be a daily practice for everyone, loving ourselves and loving other people. And, especially these days when the world is so polarized and,
Right.
How do we love our enemy and love ourselves and reconcile our beliefs and our values and that kind of thing?
Yeah. And sometimes that's the hardest part is loving your enemy as well. Or even having the foresight not to view them as your enemy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And loving them in spite of or in addition to them being maybe not your favorite person.
Well, I know that you also are a student of mindfulness, and I imagine that in and of itself, meditating on love is a kind of mindfulness practice every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep. I mean, meditation is an important part of my spiritual practice, for sure. Meditation and movement and stretching and yoga and nature.
Mm-hmm. So, it sounds like those are some of your passions. And I know you've talked about that part of this book is about using love as a religion to find your passion or clarify your passion. I have a challenging relationship with that word passion. I went to art school for undergrad, and they actually created these posters and coffee mugs that had the word passion on it. And I remember, I was studying graphic design, and I remember being in school and feeling like, I don't really connect to that word, or maybe I don't connect to it in the way that they're talking about it. And it was really a struggle for me to go to think, I don't think that this is my passion, but this is something I'm interested in. And reflecting on it now, 15 plus years later, I realized that that wasn't my passion, and that was okay. I don't think that you have to go to college for your passion.
Right.
But I'm curious what your relationship is to passion. I'm imagining that sounds like writing is your passion, and how you use the relationship of love and passion to continue to propel yourself forward in your work.
Yeah. I think my relationship, writing is definitely my passion, but I also understand, your perspective as far as something not being your passion, but also having an interest in it. I think, again, I was one of the lucky ones who kind of knew that that was my passion, and it's still my passion. But I think I can look at, like, I'm interested in fashion and styling. I've done a little bit of that, and even modeling very minimally. And I'm interested in clothing and textures and even like interior design, but I wouldn't say that those things are my passion. And maybe they might be at some point. But yeah, I definitely understand that idea that something can be of interest to you, but not necessarily a passion.
So I wonder if you could just walk us through a little bit of the book. You kind of have an outline in terms of going through different aspects of one's life to really explore their relationship to love and their purpose in life. I wonder if you could just walk us through a little bit of that to give us a sense of the experience in the book.
In terms of Make Love Your Religion?
Yeah.
So the way that the book is set up, it's in 6 different chapters. And it starts with the love of self chapter. And my idea with that was I was trying to be very intentional and mindful about the way that I put the book together. And even as far as the first chapter being love of self and the last chapter being love of God, not that self is more important than God or should go in front of God, but the idea that they can like kind of bookend this concept or this new form of religion where we're looking at self and God and looking at them equally and knowing that both of them have to come together in order for us to fulfill the things that we want to fulfill in our lives and create the type of success that we want to create. I mean, I think that love of self is so important. Like when you're pouring into yourself or when you have a love of self, you're showing the love of God because we all have that. We have the innate God or goddess within us. And the same thing with love of God, when we're showing praise to the universe, multiverse, Allah, whatever we choose to call it, it's also a form of loving self. So after the love of self chapter, then the love of community chapter is the second chapter. And with that chapter, the idea was that, okay, once we are able to figure out kind of how to love ourselves on a regular basis, that we can also share that love with other people, with our community, whether it's a micro community or our macro community. And then we also have the love of money chapter, love of celebrity life chapter, the love of knowledge chapter. And then, like I said, the last chapter is the love of God chapter. So in the love of money chapter, the love of celebrity life chapter, those are chapters that when people hear the title, they're kind of like, well, what's this about? I don't necessarily want to be a celebrity, or I don't want to love money. But those chapters are really just about helping myself and other people realize that our potential is limitless and we can live abundant lives. And it's not necessarily about trying to mimic a celebrity, but more so just knowing that we can create a life that we love kind of the same way that they do. We can give back in the same way that a celebrity does. We can treat ourselves to yoga and the best food and trips and charitable donations and so forth. And that's similar to the love of money chapter, not necessarily about celebrating money. And I can say, I wouldn't, if I was writing the book again, I wouldn't name a chapter love of money. It's kind of cringy nowadays. It's cringy now for me to have a chapter with that name, honestly. But I think that just shows, the growth that I'm going through from the time that I wrote the book till now. But yeah, I still like that chapter. I still think it's important for us to kind of have a money consciousness that's not limiting, but that is abundant, and that we can think of money in a way that it's not scarce. And we can also create new forms of money, new forms of payment, where maybe we're bartering with each other and setting up new systems. And that's kind of the things I want to get into in part 2 of the book. That just reflects some of the changes that I've been going through as a person in terms of some of these concepts in the book. But that kind of breaks down each chapter, and then it ends with the love of God chapter. And it kind of, I grew up and spent most of my life in Pennsylvania. And in that last chapter, it talks about me moving to New York. I spent 2 years there. I'm in my early 30s. So I like the fact that it kind of ends with this me in a new place. I'm looking forward to, I don't know if part 2 will pick up. I don't think part 2 will pick up, right after New York, but I'm looking forward to see where part 2 goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that the whole process and the outline of the book was really interesting, in the way you broke it down into those different parts. And I will agree with you. I was a little bit, what's the word? Like, oh, love of money and love of celebrity. What does that mean? But then when I read like what that was and the way that you were framing that, I think it's a good way to get people's attention, first of all.
Okay.
So, maybe you don't change it in the future. I don't know. The way I think about it in terms of the love of money, I think of money as just as energy. How do we use energy? How do we exchange energy? How do we use energy to support ourselves? How do we use energy to support other people?
Mm-hmm.
I would also say it's kind of like power. And again, power has a lot of negative connotations to it, but I don't mean power over, but I just mean power having the authority or the will to get things done.
Right.
And then when I think about celebrity, I think about, the idea of maybe just self-respect and honoring yourself as someone who's special, considering that you are special. Mm-hmm. The way that we think celebrities are special and, put them up on a pedestal and that kind of thing. Like, how do we respect ourselves and take care of ourselves as if we are special? Because we all deserve that. We all should feel special in our own eyes.
Yeah.
So, I thought those were just an interesting slant of working with those concepts.
I like the way you framed it. It makes the connection between the love of celebrity life chapter and the love of self chapter. And I never really thought about, it makes perfect sense, but I never really thought about that connection between those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say it's kind of like the next step after the love of self is sort of like, love yourself in a very basic way. And then how do I elevate myself and see myself as unique in a way? And what are the gifts that I have to bring to the world?
Yeah. And I feel like that's what happened.
And maybe how other people may see me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even that kind of coming into who you are as a person, that kind of happens, mm-hmm. in my opinion anyway, just happens with age and kind of experience and just life.
Yeah, exactly. So, my understanding of you is that you are primarily a poet. And is that true that most of your writing has been poetry?
No, I don't know. I usually self-identify in terms of writing, just as a writer or an author.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my poetry has been more recent, actually, especially this year. I've been sharing it a lot on social media and different things. But I guess in addition to the book, I've done like newspaper writing and magazine writing and written for some different websites in terms of music and fashion and things like that. So I usually just say like writer. I haven't done like investigative journalism type work, so I don't say journalist, but I'm happy with writer. But
Okay.
a poet as well. Like I do want to be recognized, as a poet. Well, I guess not recognized, but I recognize myself as a poet. And it's definitely a medium that I want to, I want to put out a couple different poetry books down the line.
Maybe I was thinking of that just since you said that that's what you've mostly been sharing a lot more on social media in the last year, because that's how we connected.
Yeah, and I think we got connected probably about a year ago, or maybe not even a year.
Yeah, yeah. So you have a book of poetry coming out this October in just a couple months.
I do.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that.
This book is completely different from Make Love Your Religion. It's about my sexuality and also about my spirituality and how for me, my sexuality was enhanced by my spiritual practice. And I feel like it was enhanced and it was expanded. Up until I was 30, I dated women and was never had any interest in men, actually. And then I realized, or what I experienced was that the more I got to know myself and the more I got to sit in meditation and focus on different chakras and I guess just be open to different things and experiences and situations, realized that I was also interested in men. And that's really what this book is about. It's about my sexual journey and discovery with my sexuality. And I feel like it's something that I want to share. And I don't feel like it's a coincidence that this is a part of my life. And I think it's going to be important for people, especially young Black and brown males, young males who look like me, talk like me, dress like me, listen to hip hop like I do. It's important for them to see and also to be reconnected with this part of our history. Like a lot of us who are Black and brown and of many different cultures outside of people who look like me, many indigenous cultures celebrated people who were gay or bisexual or two-spirit. And I just feel very blessed to be a part of this community and be able to share my experience with the other people that are interested in hearing it and reading about it. So this book kind of just goes through what it was like for me to expand my sexuality at 30, 31 years old and date men and deal with the fear of coming out, quote unquote. And I never felt like I was really in. So the coming out thing is a little different for me. But there were definitely times when I was, it was a very fearful, an overwhelming and, anxiety ridden thing. And I think as queer people, we're always coming out, kind of every day, depending on where we're at and who we're talking to and the things that we're doing that day. So it's definitely a vulnerable and different and sexual and exciting collection for me to put out. And I'm excited to put it out in October.
Great. So I wonder if you could read us something from that book.
Sure. Would you still like to hear the ritual?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Is it okay if I give a little background?
Yeah.
It's funny, we were talking about Keone before we got on the call here. He actually inspired this poem and this experience. One of the things that he told me when I was trying to figure out, my sexuality and what it meant and how to get past fear and the different things that I needed to work out within myself is he advised me to do a ritual where I could go into the woods and sit by water and just create the experience that I wanted to create, where I could have an opportunity to connect with my guides in spirit form and ancestors, to be able to do a ritual that would allow me to move to a new place in my life that would be more accepting and less fearful of the, everything that comes with being not only queer, but also being brown and queer. So that's where the ritual comes from. And here it goes. The ritual. On a full moon in Scorpio, swift strides carry me to you, with frantic tranquility on a mission to let go, to reveal, to heal, to hold myself dear in new light. Scents candles, sage burn to purify and welcome ancestors. Calling out their names one by one, I pleaded with them to sit next to me. Without hesitation, they did. next to, around, underneath, behind, straightening shoulders, massaging muscles, tenderly touching temples, baiting bellowing breath, lifting, lifting, lifting high, greeting me with sanguine spirit as they were born again, rising up out of the cold stream. Leaves blanketing sorrow and hope, they instructed me to baptize my feet in the pure water, to carry out and welcome new life, shouting to the heavens, calling out the small boy inside. We screamed to the anguished fears of being both black and gay, looked them in the rounds of their pupils, and told them no more.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I also really appreciated you giving us the backstory on that because it puts it in a new light.
Yeah, that was super important for me to do. And it's been something that I've been able to suggest to other friends or to people who are in a similar situation, kind of struggling and needing to have some sort of ritualistic way to handle the fear and the anxiety and all the other things that can come with it sometimes.
It's almost like you came up with your own queer initiation or baptism.
Yeah.
It's like that's what your guides brought for you.
Mm.
Did it feel like a baptism to you?
Oh, yes, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, I believe in ritual work, and I believe in, connecting with our guides and just using the power that we have inside of us to do this type of work and to connect in ways that can help us kind of move along and release some things and welcome in some new things, some other things.
So, David, can you share with us now a person, practice, or experience that has supported your queer spirit to flourish?
Definitely movement and dance, and also breath work, and just being and knowing when I need to tap into those things, when I need to move, when I need to dance, when I need to tap into my sexuality or my feminine energy while doing those things. I think those are key things that have helped me to keep my queer spirit and to cultivate it and to celebrate it.
Are there certain kinds of dance that you like to do that you feel really connect you with your spirit in that way?
I mean, sometimes it's the drum, or sometimes it's a song that's sexual or sensual, or I think it just depends on kind of the vibe, what I need at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anybody asked you that question on the podcast?
The question that I asked you, that I ask everyone else?
Yes.
I can't remember. Maybe. I think someone has turned the question around on me once, and I think my answer would probably always be different every time someone asked me, just depending on the state of mind I was in.
Okay.
So, yeah. Are you wanting to know my answer right now?
Yeah, I am.
I would say right now it's music because I'm really getting more into sound healing. And, I grew up playing the piano and singing, and music has been a way that I've really connected with spirit because I sang in church a lot. I grew up Catholic, and even though I'm not practicing Catholic anymore and don't identify in that way, there was a way in which singing really helped me connect to my spirit. And I think there's a way that singing and music also helps me connect to the spirit of nature and have commune with nature in that way. And I think about music now, especially in my sound healing work, in terms of the elemental qualities that those bring and how to balance the elements in myself and in other people. I would say that that's my answer right now. That's my answer today.
Nice. I like that your answer is evolving.
Yeah.
It's kind of always changing when they go on. It's going on.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
No problem.
Well, David, can you share with people where they can find you and find your books?
Definitely. So you can find me on Instagram at davidnazario.com. And you can also check out my website, which is davidnazario.com. On Facebook, if you're interested in keeping up with Make It Love Your Religion and kind of the principles that align with the book, we have a very active page on Facebook. Just search Make Love Your Religion. My book is available where books are sold, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon. It's also available on Google Play, and it's available on my website as well.
Great. Well, I will have those links in the show notes so people can find them there too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David, for being here and sharing more about making love your religion and poetry and ritual and all of that juicy stuff.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
To find the resources we discussed today, find the show notes at thequeerspirit.com. And if you enjoyed the show, remember to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. This will help us reach and support more queer people all over. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.